Okay, guys, let's look at the problems that you guys had to do during this lesson. All right, first you're asked to find the perimeter of the figure. Now, the perimeter is simply the distance around the outside of the figure. So in this case, the perimeter would be this segment plus this segment plus this segment, right? We know the lengths of those three segments, but then the perimeter would also include this distance here, which would be the arc of the semicircle, right? Not the perimeter of the semicircle, because it doesn't include this segment, but it would be the arc part of the semicircle, which would be equivalent to half the circumference of a circle. So the perimeter would be these three segments here plus half the circumference of a circle. Now, we already know the lengths of these three segments, so essentially we need to find the circumference divided by 2. We need half the circumference of the circle. So circumference we know is pi times diameter, but then we have to divide that by 2. So that's going to be 3.14 times the diameter, which is 12, and then we want to divide that by 2. So with your calculators, you would do 3.14 times 12, and then you want to divide that by 2, and you wind up with 18.84. Alright, so this part is going to be 18.84, those are inches. But to find the perimeter, we'd have to add the 18.84 plus the 18 plus the 18 plus the 12, right? These segments here. So we'd have to add all of that together. So we add that with 18, right, plus 18 plus the 12, and we wind up with 66.84, 66.84, and those would be inches, right? And 66.84, right, that looks like that would be answer C for problem number 1. Right, let's look at this next one. This next figure, right, to find the perimeter, we know some of the distances. We know all of these horizontal and vertical distances here. I know this horizontal distance, and of course this vertical distance is the same as this vertical distance, right? So we know that that's going to be 58 feet as well. So what we don't know is this distance here and this distance here. Well, to find those distances, we're simply looking at the circumference of a circle, right? So we need to first find the circumference of that circle. Circumference is pi times the diameter. So the circumference is going to be 3.14, which we will use for pi, times the diameter. Well, what's the diameter of that circle? Well, let's see. We're looking for this distance here. Well, if we know this entire distance is 232, and I know from here to here is 58, and from here to here is 58, the diameter is going to be equal to the 232 minus 58 times 2 is what, 116? Right? So if we take 116 away from 232, means the diameter is also going to be 116. So the diameter here is 116 feet. So when we use the diameter, that's going to be 116 feet here. So the circumference is going to be equal to the 3.14 times the 116. We get 364.24, and those are feet. But that's just the circumference. We also have to find the sum of those other segments. So the perimeter is going to be equal to the 6 segments of 58, right? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments of 58 plus the circumference, which was 364.24. All right. So I want to add that. Right, plus 6 times 58, right? And we wind up with 712, so the perimeter is going to be 712.24, right? Those are feet, and that looks like that's going to be answer D. All right, so for problem number 2, we get answer D. All right. Next example. Example 3, much easier problem. All right. We don't have any circular regions, so that's why this problem is going to be much easier. So what do we need to know for the perimeter? Well, I have this segment here, and I have this segment, all right, and I have this segment. But we don't know, let's see, I don't know this segment, but I know that it's going to be 6 because it's the same as this segment here. This segment is going to be the same as this segment, so that's going to be 8, right? So we didn't know that. And then we need this horizontal segment here, which is going to be the 13 plus the 6, so that's going to be 19. So the perimeter is simply the sum of those segments. So we have 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus the 13 plus the 8 plus the 19 plus the 8. So I want to add all of that together. So we have 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 13 plus the 8 plus the 19 plus the 8. And we wind up with a perimeter of 66. Our perimeter is going to be equal to 66. And those are meters. That looks like that's going to be answer C. So for problem 3, we wind up with answer C. Let's look at question 4. Now question 4 is the easiest of them all because to find the perimeter, we simply have to add all of the segments here, and we're given the lengths of all of those segments. So if we add all of these segments together, right, I highlighted them in blue, that's going to give us the perimeter. So the perimeter is going to be equal to 11 plus 6 plus 12 plus 22 plus 12 plus 6. We want to find the sum of those segments, so we have 11 plus 6 plus 12 plus 22 plus 12 plus 6, and we wind up with a perimeter of 69 inches. All right, and 69 inches, that's going to be answer D for problem number 4. Okay, problem number 5 is simply a vocabulary question. A figure is made up of triangles, squares, rectangles, semicircles, and other two-dimensional figures, right? That was part of the lesson if you watched the video, and that's simply B, composite figures. Alright, this question here, the circumference of a circle is 34 centimeters. Find the radius of the circle. Well, circumference is equal to 2 times pi times r. Well, to solve that formula for r, we would divide both sides of the equations by 2 times pi. They'd cancel over here, so we find that our radius is equal to the circumference divided by 2 times pi. So we're going to use that formula for this problem here. So the radius is going to be equal to the circumference, which is 34, divided by 2 times pi, which we'll use 3.14. So with your calculators, take 34 divided by 2 times 3.14, that's 6.28. And we wind up with 5.41 centimeters for the radius. The radius is going to be 5.41. Those are centimeters. And that looks like that's answer C for question number 6. Alright. Okay, here's question 7. We have a semicircle. We're asked to find the perimeter of the semicircle. We're given this distance here, but we still need to find this distance here. So the perimeter is going to be equal to the diameter that we're given plus the circumference divided by 2 because we only need half of that distance. So let's do some substitution here. The perimeter is going to be equal to the diameter, which is 2, plus the circumference. Well, the circumference is pi times the diameter, which is 2, but we only need half of that distance, so we're going to divide that by 2. So my perimeter is going to be equal to 2 plus 3.14 times 2, dividing that by 2. Well, they're going to cancel, so we wind up with our perimeter being equal to 2 plus 3.14, so that's going to be 5.14. Those are feet, and that looks like that's going to be answer D for question number 7. Question number 8. Similar type of problem, but instead of being given the diameter, we're given the radius. Alright, but we know that the diameter is 2 times the radius here. So if the radius is 14, we know then that the diameter is going to be 2 times 14, right, which is going to be 28 centimeters. So we're going to do the problem the same way we did the last one, and now we're going to use 28 for our diameter. So the perimeter is going to be equal to the diameter plus the circumference divided by 2. Perimeter is going to be equal to that diameter, which is 28, plus the circumference is pi times the diameter of 28. We're dividing that by 2. So the perimeter is going to be equal to 28 plus 3.14 times the 28. We're dividing that by 2. So let's do a little math here. 3.14 times 28 divided by 2. It's going to be 43.96. So my perimeter is going to be equal to that 28 plus the 43.96. Alright, and that's going to wind up being about 72. Right, that's going to be about 72 centimeters, and that's going to be answer B for question number 8. Right, it's about 72 centimeters. Question 9. A wire is bent to form 4 semicircles. How long is the wire? Right, so here's the wire. Right, so we essentially have, I'm going to shade this in so we can see it, right, how many circles we have here. Right, here's a half a semicircle, here's a half a semicircle, right, so that's one full circle. Then I have another half a semicircle, another half a semicircle, so that's essentially 2 full circles. So we want to find the perimeter of 2 full circles. So the how long is the wire? Well, the perimeter is going to be equal to, or the length of the wire, because they're not asking for perimeter, so let's use L. Right, so the length of the wire is going to be equal to the length of 2 circumferences. So 2 times pi times the diameter, right? Because the circumference is pi times the diameter, but we have the length of 2 circumferences because we have one circle here and we have one circle here. So my length is going to be equal to 2 times pi times diameter. So L is going to be equal to 2 times 3.14 times the diameter, which is 35. So we multiply 2 times 3.14 times the 35, and we wind up with 219.8. 219.8. These are centimeters, and if we look for an answer that's close, right, it looks like that's going to be answer B, because 219.8 is about 220. So we're going to get answer B for question number 9. Alright, and then we have our last question, question number 10. We want to find the approximate perimeter of the figure to the nearest whole unit. Well, the perimeter is going to be equal to what? We have like this distance here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's a distance of 10. So that then means we're looking at a diameter of 10, right? And let's use this segment of 4, this segment of 4, and then we have half of a perimeter, right? Half of the circumference of the circle. So let's first find this arc here, right? So the circumference divided by 2 is going to be equal to pi times the diameter, but divided by 2 because we only have that semicircle arc. So that's going to be equal to the 3.14 times the diameter, which we set is 10, but then we're going to divide that by 2. So we have 3.14 times 10, and then we want to divide that by 2, and that's going to give us 15.7, right? So this is 15.7. But to find the perimeter, we have to then add to that, right, to find the perimeter, right? The perimeter is going to be equal to that. Let's erase that. The perimeter is going to be the 15.7 plus the 10 plus the 4 plus the 4, right? So that's going to be plus 10 plus 4 plus 4. So we get about, perimeter is approximately 33.7. We're asked to go to the nearest whole unit. So to the nearest whole unit, we should have a perimeter of 34 if we're going to the nearest whole unit. All right? I hope that that video is going to help you guys if you had a few problems. I heard from a couple of you, and you had did have some questions, so hopefully that's going to be helpful. And then I think we'll move on to the next lesson after this.